So here we are in Starfield. You'll notice in the top left there that the CPU, I can't give you guys temperatures. I've had people ask me this repeatedly on videos. Phoenix CPUs are not present in Afterburner. There's nothing I can do about that, but MSI hasn't added them. So I cannot give you CPU temperatures in game. It's not oversight, it just doesn't exist. Anyway, so we'll do some 1440p testing here because that's the screen how it's meant to be. So 1440p low, no upscaling, nothing like that. Forms here. I will test several areas, so I'm going to test a bunch of different settings in a couple different areas. So I'll do outdoors here, indoors, and I'll go to primary city because there's a very huge fluctuation in performance depending on where you are. So 1440p low here, we're at 48 FPS, 50, probably be 55 or 60 up here. Yeah, we're up to about 55 there, and 45 over here. It's more demanding scene. This is pretty standard from what I've seen. So low with FSR, basically the highest FSR there, which I'm assuming is like performance. They just give you a slider. They don't give you the performance or whatever. So basically 1440p low. Throw on some FSR on the max, and you're basically cooking. We'll turn up FSR here to 75, which is probably more like quality mode, I would say. If you're comparing this to other games, it's just weird. And that's your 60. So max FSR, 75. Quality or FSR, I'll call it 75%, which is basic medium here. So you can see their medium, it's not great, but it's still above 30. 40 over there, 37 over here. So I guess if you play, on your Series X, Series S, and then you kick over to your Legion, it's still going to run better than the Series X, Series S. So I guess it wouldn't be a shock. So FSR there. Let's go with, basically I'll call this quality from now on. Quality will be 75. And then performance will be 50. So quality FSR, probably, when I play this is probably how I'm going to do it. Just throw it on, like 1440p medium, and quality FSR should be pretty good, to be honest. I'm okay with 45 to 50 FPS. So, medium with performance FSR, and, you got your 60 over there. You're probably going to drop down to about 50 or so, not even. So if you want high FPS, medium with high FSR is probably the way to go. It actually looks good too. To be honest, it actually looks quite good. So we're still on medium here, and with FSR on max. And indoors, you're going to see a huge jump in performance. Yeah, you can see their medium with max FSR inside. It goes up a ton. So, in indoor sections, you really don't need to turn the settings down this much. You could probably just turn off FSR, to be honest. You can see the huge jump from outdoors, like 128, almost double. This FSR down real quick. I'm just going to pound through these settings real quick here because I want to show a lot. Half scaled FSR, still quite good inside. You can see there. If you want huge frame rates, throw medium with very high FSR. If you're okay with, 60, 70, 80, look at, still very good with that kind of FSR. I think we can get away with native medium and still be well above 60, but let's see here. So we'll turn that off. So you can see there, medium native now, still well above 60 indoors. Very good performance here. So indoors native, high, and you're getting 60 FPS easily. Just rob everything. So just half FSR, ultra settings, 1440p indoors, and you're above 60. So rock solid in indoor segments. No worries here to get good frames. You could turn the FSR up if you wanted, but you don't really need to, not when you're indoors. Okay, let's jump to a city scene, which is going to be significantly more demanding. Okay, so now we're in a city here. This is probably the most demanding area in the game that I've been to, at least. This is medium with half FSR. So medium, 75% scaling. this is how I'm going to be playing. When you're in the worst areas of the game, you're going to be sitting between, 60 over here and lows of probably around 45 or so. When you're indoors, it's going to go way up on the setting, medium with, half FSR. You can see it'll be something like this. Indoors, 75. That's technically more FSR. This is basically like performance. You can see the FPS went way up here. So 74. So we're going to be just around 60 here. Yeah. So if you really need to be above 60 FPS in all situations, but you don't want it to look bad. It doesn't look bad by any means. There's no weird jankies here. Everybody looks good, even with the performance FSR. This may be the way to go. We'll max FSR low, and we'll just see what we can chase at 1440p. So there's your FPS chasers. If you need high FPS, because it is an action game and it is a shooter. 72 in the worst areas here. You can come over here. It'll go up. See that up quite a bit. 80, and then you're going to come into, like, say this is an indoor area in here. You're not rendering so much. Probably closer to 90. You can see one thing, that the wattage on the GPU is not actually super high, all things considered. That's because it's shared wattage between CPU and GPU, and Starfield is very CPU intensive. You can see there, it's at 41% or 58%, and CPU there. So a lot of power is going to the CPU, like a lot. So there's not as much power for the GPU, and that's why some laptops are struggling with this, and other devices as well. It's because there's a lot of watts going to that CPU because it needs it. And then as a result, your GPU gets starved a little bit and runs, not as well. So you can see there, in performance mode, I'm only getting 70 watts to the GPU. Performance mode, depending on how CPU bound the game is, you can get like 100 to 115 watts on the 4060 in this laptop. If it's a non-CPU bound game, like a very, very GPU heavy game, you're basically going to get, more power to the GPU and it will perform better. But in this title, CPU demand is going to kill GPU performance. It's just the way that it is. So let's come over here, watch the wattage there. We're at 70. I'm going to go to balance mode. I don't think it's actually going to change much, if really at all. Balance mode, yeah, 65. So balance mode normally runs, pretty well with a lot of watts, probably more than this. But again, the CPU is taking so much of the watts because it's shared wattage and shared cooling for the whole system. This isn't like a desktop computer. There wasn't basically a huge drop in wattage. FPS, as a result, didn't drop much either. 62, 72. So we dropped, 3 FPS? It is actually quieter. So in this game, because it is so CPU bound, you kind of are better off just playing in balance mode. Like, look at this, 63. Right? 3 FPS, 1 FPS, it's way noisier. Way noisier. So it's because it's so CPU heavy. This is a thin and light laptop. It only has so many watts it can allocate. If you have a desktop computer, or some monstrous gaming laptop that has, 350 watts, there's more watts to go to the CPU and more watts to go to the GPU. You'll get better performance because it'll be less split. Let's go down to silent mode and see what happens here. Right, you can see on silent mode even, it's not a gigantic drop because, again, there's just, the wattage going to the GPU is not that much reduced. Look at that, 61 on silent in Starfield. This game's not easy to run. 60 watts here. Look at that, 40 watts. And we're getting 50 in these horrible areas over here. Right? And then over here. And I mean, that's not even like low, right? We're running on medium with FSR, right? Like we can play around with the FSR a bit, whatever. It'll drop the frames slightly, but this is silent mode. Like the laptop is quiet. Just play on silent. So we'll go real quick. One more scene here. 54 on silent. It's basically like it is silent too. Okay, 10 more frames on balanced. This is a good way to play. This is how I'm going to play. It's pretty quiet. The fans are going, but you're above 60, which is nice. Performance mode, we get 3 FPS. So because this game is so CPU heavy, and because the NVIDIA 4000 series GPUs are very efficient, performance mode is almost pointless. Decide between silent, get your 55, or balanced, and get your 65.